philosophy. When I say philosophy, it's actually philosophies. There's no one school, there's multiple schools. And it's Indian thought, which was kind of organically grew in the Indian civilization kind of thousands of years ago. And the reason for that is, if you look at over the last decade or more, there's a lot of interest among authors who are looking at, American authors looking at the Greco-Roman civilization, not from a historical perspective, which has always been done over centuries, but with a way to learn from these civilizations so that we could apply it to today's problems, so solving today's problems. And one of my favorite authors is Ryan Holiday. He's written some great books on the topic. From Greek civilization, the obstacle is the way, ego is the enemy, and I believe there's one more called stillness is the key. So basically looking at these civilizations to learn more from them and using that wisdom to solve today's problems. So I thought to myself many years ago, how would we do that with respect to the Indian civilization, Indian philosophy? Because Indian civilization has been studied from a historical perspective, but how about studying it to learn things about what we can learn from them to apply to solve today's problems. So that is what Can Be Ideas is. And there are two reasons for that. One is, learning to solve today's problems. And there is a bigger reason I think is very important. Looking at all the projections, the next 30 to 50 years, everybody has predicted that India is going to be one of the three biggest economies with US, China, and then India. So we have seen that when every civilization, nation gets that position, they usually look back into their roots and start to come out of their colonial mindset and start to think about the world from their own perspective. So when you start doing business, then you need to understand, because 20th century has been a single perspective, a single dominant, which is the Western perspective. So but moving forward, that's not going to be the case. So it's very important in terms of politics, in terms of doing business, to know multiple perspectives. How would other major players in the world, how do they think? So in that respect, it's very important to also study the Indian thought, because that's the one that's going to motivate a new perspective in the coming decades. So what I've done for 10 big ideas, I've reduced what I've learned to 10 major ideas, 10 big ideas that kind of give you a glimpse of what Indian thought is. So let's start with my first big idea. And like Stephen Covey, the author of 7 Habits of Effective People, says, begin with the end in mind. So let's do that. To know a civilization or to understand a thought, you need to understand what its end goal is. So if you look at the West, you can see that, from a theological perspective, it is salvation. So that is the end goal. That's how the world is seen. So the normal state of the world is, it's headed for disaster, and it needs to be saved. We need to be saved. The people need to be saved. So this savior mentality, if you don't understand this, you don't understand the West savior mentality, which I've lived here 26 years. I still don't understand that mentality, because that is not the thought I grew up with. So it always sounds a little weird to me, But again, that's a perspective. So that way you understand where people are coming from, where civilizations are coming from. So from the perspective of the Indian thought, the end goal of philosophy, of spirituality, whatever you call that, is moksha. Now moksha is nothing but freedom. So to understand that, we need to understand how Indian thought sees the human state. What Indian thought say is humans are kind of motivated by three major pursuits. It is the motivation, the goal is to achieve some kind of morality. That means we have an inherent need for fairness. That's one. That's what drives the actions. Second is there's a pursuit of wealth, and there's pursuit of pleasure. So sometimes when pleasure and wealth dominate, then it affects the pursuit of fairness. So it's kind of each one is conflicting with each other. But these are three major drives in the world that you don't need to be educated to understand, because this is a human predicament. This is like any person who's a human being, and of course even in animals you have a pursuit of pleasure. There is a sense of fairness that drives our action. There's pursuit of wealth, which is actually pursuit of means, and then finally the pursuit of pleasure. So these are three. But Indian philosophy says there's a fourth bigger one, higher one, and that is the pursuit of freedom. And that is regarded as the highest value for a human being, is the pursuit of freedom. Now, if you look at, influencers today, people talk about financial freedom, how to have richness of time, how to do whatever you want to do without worrying about money. I mean, YouTube is all about those kinds of videos. You have social freedom, how to live a life that we want to live. And then we have world freedom, right? How to stop being, freeing ourselves from 9 to 5. How to live life, and not make our life just a 9 to 5 thing. So these are things that people already know and understand, and they want to get out of. But there is an ultimate freedom. Indian thought says that ultimate freedom is the freedom of mind, which is we are always bound by an invisible hand. You can think of Matrix, even though the world is real. I mean, there's different kinds of thought, but our assumptions about the world, that is problematic. So that is something that we cannot see, smell, hear, but we are bound in it. So freeing ourselves from that is considered the ultimate freedom. So you have the savior mentality when you understand the West, but if you want to understand real Indian thought, it is to free ourselves and ultimately to free our mind. That is the highest value of Indian thought. This is a Sanskrit verse from an ancient book called Vishnu Purana. And here a young boy is talking to his father, who is a demon, Hiranyakashipu, and he's explaining to him what is real action, what is real knowledge. And I'm going to tell you the verse. It says, Tat karma yanna bandhaya. He tells him, and he's a small boy, he's an 8-10 years old boy. He's telling his demon father what is real work. He says, that is real action, which is not bound by anything, not forced by anything. It's pure creative action for its own sake. It should not be bound by anything. He says, that is the one that is true action. Sa vidya yavimuktaye. That is real knowledge that frees the mind. Ayasaya param karma, which means every other action is but effortful labor. It's useless. And then vidyanya shilpanaipunam, which means every other knowledge is just smartness or vocation. It's useless. So real knowledge is one that frees the mind. And that's always been that subtext of the Indian civilization, Indian thought, is it's always ultimately about freeing the mind, whether it's meditation, and whether it's yoga, it's any of those practices. Ultimately, they are to free one's mind. Now the question is, free from what? So then we come to the second big idea, the problem of ajnana. Ajnana is a Sanskrit word for ignorance. But it's more than not knowing something. It's something hidden that you can never know. So there's a force that's hidden, kind of think of matrix, that you don't know. But it's there everywhere. Right? That's ajnana. So it says, look at the human predicament. Our wishes and our desires are always a lot more than things that come true. So for those that a lot of them come true, you say he's a lucky guy. For those it doesn't come true, they are unlucky. But the universe is indifferent. But human wish wants to change that. And that conflict between a lot of human wishes and the indifferent world is the basic cause of suffering. So in Sanskrit, there are two words for this kind of suffering. One is called dukkha, which means physical pain, and shoka, which means mental suffering. So yeah, like they say, money solves money problems. Yeah, you can get all the comfort in the world and solve the pain problem. But the suffering problem affects a poor guy and a multi-billionaire, because each one has their own suffering. So each one is looking at something and is suffering. I wish I could do this. I wish I could have another $10 billion. So everybody's suffering their own suffering. And because the wishes are innumerable, there's no end to human wishes, human desires. So there's always this conflict between human desire and the indifferent world. And on top of that, the human psyche is built in such a way that there are these forces that we're not aware of within ourselves that are making us choose instant gratification, the here and the now, and not the other choice, which is the long-term choice. So we are built, our instincts, our whole mental makeup is built to choose the here and the now, the instant gratification, so we always keep falling for that. So the model of individual that the Indian thought kind of presents is we as individuals are actually two selves. So there is awareness that you are aware of me talking, that awareness is there, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. But below the surface, there's a huge iceberg that we can call unawareness. So without we being aware, there's a lot of forces below the awareness level that is shaping how we react, what we do, what instincts will guide us. So that unawareness is the one that's guiding all the decisions that we take. It's very difficult to overcome those instincts which nature has built us. Because the nature's job, as you can see the cycle, nature's job is to perpetuate life. It doesn't want us to break free. It wants us bound. And so it has built our body and the mind in such a way that perpetuation happens through the instincts. And we all fall for that. So the problem of ajnana is the problem of the hidden hand of nature that we are not aware of, the unawareness. That's what ajnana is. Now, if that is lurking, that's hidden, then how do we get rid of this problem? So that brings us to the first insight of how this ignorance or this unawareness guides us to what it wants us to do. And the first one is called the illusion of identity. So these are manifestations of how that unawareness works and how the hidden hand shapes how what awareness thinks. So in one line, what does that mean? That means that awareness always identifies with the object and the situations. That means we identify ourselves into that limited situations and context within which we are and are unable to see the bigger picture. We always are stuck. And a great example is if you're watching a movie, you're stuck into the movie. You are the hero. The hero's problems are your problems. That situation is your situation. So that is how even the life kind of sucks us into that context, that limited context. So we are unaware of a big picture that we can look at those problems through. And that is the illusion of identity. And the Sanskrit verse there is from an Upanishad, which says, Paranchikani yatrana swayambhu tasmat parapashitu natratma. Which means we have been given senses that always look outward. Our eyes look outward, the ears look outward. So it naturally pulls our awareness to see outward. And therefore everybody is seeing outward and they're stuck in identifying themselves to the outer world. There's also another thing, is when we look at things, we are also combining a lot of aspects of that into one unitary whole, and that's one thing. And I'm going to explain what that is later on. But that's how it is. We are stuck into an identity with the world, that's one. And when we see things, we are also seeing it as one whole, when there are many multiple shades to it. And why we need to do that, I will explain later on. So that is the problem of identity, and that's at the root of all the problems that we have. So the unknown hand, the unawareness, shapes us in this way, to identify ourselves to a limited context, so that we are unable to see the bigger picture. So what happens is, we don't have a problem. When we identify a problem, we are the problem. So when we are a problem, there's no solution. But if we have a problem, there's a solution. So when you identify with a problem, there's no solution. Right? So that is what this sucks us into. The fourth big idea, which is again the manifestation of this hidden hand, it's called as the illusion of permanence. And the illusion of permanence is that we assume, and this is kind of a recency bias, is where we are is the most important thing in the world. Our times are the most important part in our time in the world. So we always assume that what is today will always remain the same in the future. Right? And so we are and there is a reason for that. Like I said, the hidden hand. The reason for why we are built to do that is the energy, the brain resources required to make sense of a lot of changes at the same time is not there. So we can only handle one change or a couple of changes at a time. So what the psyche assumes or makes us assume is keep everything constant and treat everything as constant, and also that we can only deal with a couple of changes. And that's how we can keep our sanity. And so that is the reason why we cannot handle change. And we always assume that things will remain the same, which it has never. So that is the second illusion, and that's the illusion of permanence. And the final one, the final insight of how this illusion manifests is the illusion of control. And this is something that it's very hard for West to understand. And because when the British were in India, they did not understand when they were translating all the scriptures into English. They're like, what is this illusion of control? I can raise my hand, I control. So they were unable to understand this very, very important thing, which is illusion of control. And in my workshops, explaining this goes on for about an hour. And I give an example that's, we assume control when we don't have control. So there's an assumption of control. And again, that's exactly like the psyche to remain sane and to conserve energy has to provide us with that assumption. And you can see the picture, a man is looking at the light, and that's the example that I give in my class, in my workshop. Think of this sentence. I turn the light on. Now it's I and the light on, which is the outcome, is together. It's I control the outcome. Okay, that's fine. Now let's say the next time you turn the light on, the light doesn't come on. And you're like wondering, oh, power is not there. I need power. Okay. Oh, I turn the light on and there should be power, and then the light comes on. Next time you turn the light on, the light doesn't come on, there's power, but the light doesn't work. Okay. The actual real way to say that is when I turn the switch on, the power should be there, and the bulb should work, or the tube should work, then the light comes on. So this one sentence, I turn the light on, can be extended. Oh, the wiring should be good. The switch should work. And finally, to such an extent that when I wish to turn on, my nervous system and my hand should work. Because you can wish, and if you cannot, if the wish does not translate somehow magically into action, you cannot flip the switch. So basically, I wishing to turn on and then turning the light on, there is like a million things that need to happen, which happens regularly. But when it doesn't happen, then we know what we actually control. But for everything, if I start thinking of how the mic should work, the wireless should be on, the power should be on, all of those things, I will not remain sane to be talking to me. Right? So the psyche, human psyche, has kind of abstracted everything out and created this direct relationship between I and my action and the outcome. So these are very connected. But understanding should be that that's not how things work. That's an assumption, that's an illusion of control. So that's the three illusions that this ajnana, the unknown, the unawareness, kind of guides the human psyche. One is the illusion of identity, two, the illusion of permanence, and three, the illusion of control. So these are all the insights on how the unawareness controls us. Now, how do I get rid of that? Yes, I know, but how do I get rid of that? Like, what perspective, what mindset should I have so that I can get rid of these illusions or limitations of these illusions? The sixth big idea is yoga. And yoga is not exercise. Yoga in the Gita, which is the Bhagavad Gita, is one of the scriptures. Yoga means a strategy, a tool. So, what is the tool to understand this, to overcome this? The first one is Prakriti and Purusha. Now, again, it's a Sanskrit term. I'll explain that. So, you can call it as the framework of two. Everything in the world is in the framework of two. And like I said, illusion of identity is a problem. So if identity is a problem, what is the solution? You got to discriminate between those two. So I said, multiple things are in a unitary whole, and then we need to remove that. We need to remove ourselves from the situation, and we need to, how we look at things, we need to kind of discriminate them apart. So here, this framework of two, which is Prakriti and Purusha, in a simple way, means there are forms, the appearance forms, and there is the essence. So these two are always together. And we treat the form as if it's the essence. So that is the illusion of identity. It's not just us identifying with things, but we also, when we look at things, we are treating the form as an essence. A person who looks good need not have a good character. There is no relationship between them. But then we think looks and character are together. So that is the illusion of identity. So here, the Prakriti and Purusha is saying what? Form is different from its essence, from its character. It's kind of like the word is different from the meaning. Word is a physical thing that we hear. The meaning is the essence of the word. So those are two different things. And I mentioned this mantra for Kathopanishad, which is an Upanishad. The first line was, we have the senses, paranchikani yatra swayambhu tasmat parak pashyitinantaratman, which means we have the senses in such a way that they always suffers to the outer world. The second line says, kaschid dhiraha pratyagatmana maikshat avranta chakshuhu amritatvam, which means the majority of the human beings are like that, sucked out, they're pulled out to the outer world because the job of the senses are to do that. But only a few turn their eyes inwards and desire to attain immortality. So that is what is turning the eyes inwards is the ability to get ourselves out of a small context and looking things from a bigger picture and looking at things not just as a form and essence are the same. Able to understand what the form is and what the essence is. That power to discriminate is the one that gets rid of this illusion of identity. And this is a book that I'm writing, hopefully next year or this year, I don't know when it will be published. But here's a list of all the things, right? The letter of the law, the spirit of the law. The letter of the law is the form. The spirit of the law is the real essence of that. You should not misunderstand the letter and the spirit are the same. And then the word and the meaning. Let me see. Muscle and real strength. Muscle is just the form. Strength is the real essence of that. Food is the form. Nutrition is the real essence of that. Aesthetics is just the form. Functionality is the real essence of that. So when we start understanding the world as a form and an essence together, but we need to understand what the form is, what the limitations are, and what is the real important in that, and that's the essence. So this is the framework of two that gets rid of our illusion of identity. So the next big idea is detached attachment. That's one of my favorite ideas because it gives you the mindset, it gives you the tool on how to approach the world that has these kinds of illusions and the unawareness that is guiding us into that illusion. So if you look at detached attachment, the first thing that the mantra says in the Upanishad is to look inward, which gives us the ability to separate ourselves from the situations, separate ourselves from the context, look at the big picture. So without separating ourselves from the situation and the context, we will not be able to solve the problems. So we need to separate ourselves from the problem to be able to externalize it and solve the problem. So the detached attachment is a mindset that is the way to tackle the form of the essence. It says, attached to the essence, detached from forms. Basically, it's incorporation of language, which means, attach means give importance, care about, in the essence. Detached from forms means don't attach importance, don't give importance to the form. Truth can be told in any language. So don't say this has to be told only in this language. Understanding that truth is the essence, but it can be conveyed by somebody putting on an Indian attire or a jeans or Indian language or English. It doesn't matter. Truth is the essence. Language is the media. Language is the form. So once we learn to attach to the essence of what it is and understand that the forms can vary, we don't give importance to the forms, then we have understood what that illusion of identity is and can overcome that. So this is the most important strategy among the Indian thought is detached attachment. See, detachment is a disinterest. We don't want people to be detached. Attachment is excessive interest. We don't want people to be excessively attached. So we want appropriate detached attachment. You need to detach from what is not important and attach to what is important. Essence is important, attach to essence. Forms are not important, detach from forms. So that is the strategy, that's the mindset that the Indian thought teaches us. The next big idea is Viveka. So wherever it says yoga, it means a tool that's available in the Indian thought to overcome those illusions. Viveka is a Sanskrit word for the ability to discriminate right from wrong, that ability to discriminate. Now this is a solution for the illusion of permanence. So it says, the first thing is a radical acceptance of what? That change is the only constant. Whatever we wish, whatever we do, you might have all the nuclear weapons in the world, change will never be stopped. Change will happen. That is a radical acceptance that change is always bound to happen. But the thing is, while change affects form, essence will not change. So, in the ancient times, an expression of love would have been completely different. Today, the expression of love might be different. Things have changed. People are using different languages or different ways of expressing love. But the love has not changed for thousands of years. It's remained the same. But how it's been expressed has changed. There's no problem there. Right? So that acceptance of change of form, change is a constant. Change can never be stopped, but change is the change of form. Essence can remain the same, because that's the most important thing. That is the acceptance that essence can come in multiple forms. Thousands of years ago, somebody would have explained that in a different language, in a different context, because this is something I'm explaining so that people today can understand and use it to solve the problems. But in the ancient times, the context and the stories would have not made sense at all, because the form at that time was different. Things changed. But what it means to humanity does not change. So how do we get rid of illusion of permanence? Again, detached attachment. Attached to the essence which is eternal. Love is eternal. Ancient, today, 5,000 years from now, the form of how it's expressed will change, but the love, hope, all of these are very important, does not change. That's the essence. That doesn't change. So, we need to attach, as in give importance, care about that, the essence, and then detach from the non-eternal or the transient forms. Forms change. Accept that things change, people change, what they wear, what they speak, how they speak, the slangs they use, everything changes. But what they convey will remain the same. You can convey hope in a different way, in many different ways. You can convey love in many different ways. That understanding is very important. So detached attachment in this way, understanding that change is the only constant, and the change is for the form, but not for the essence. It's very important to know. So that is the second way of handling the illusion of permanence. And finally, the illusion of control. I mean, this is the hardest to get rid of, even though we know that we and the outcome are not really connected directly, but we will go insane if we start thinking about all the things that will take care of the outcome. So, Indian thought has come up with a fantastic approach, which a lot of today's authors are using that, you might have heard that. And this is the shloka from the scripture called Bhagavad Gita. It's a very famous shloka, Karmanye Vadikaraste Ma Phaleshkadashana, which basically means the outcome that we desire has multiple causes. There are so many things that, like I said, for the light to come on, there should be power that you don't control, the wire should be good, that you don't control, the tube should be good, you don't control. There's so many things that need to be good for that outcome to happen. But all of this, but the process that I can only control what I do, what I can do, that's always in your hands. So kind of getting rid of the direct attachment to the outcomes and all this thinking of I control the process, the outcome is not in my hands, so I will put my everything in the process, and because I don't control the outcome, I don't really care. Yes, I want a certain outcome, I care about the outcome, but whether it happens today or tomorrow or not even in my lifetime, it doesn't matter. Because I have put everything that I have into the process, into my action. So that is how you get rid of the illusion of control. Never assume that you control the outcome directly. No. We only influence the outcome through our actions. So that understanding that we influence the outcomes through our actions, and that's all we can directly control, that is the one that can get rid of this illusion of control. And again, if you put the same detached attachment mindset to it, detached from outcome process, outcome focus, attached to what you can do, which means the most important thing is what you do in a situation, not what happens from what you do. Of course, the intention it's not you need a bad thing, but in an ethical way. If you want something, then all you can control is what you can do to bring that something about. But if there's something that you need has to come about, there are so many other causes, partial causes, and so many other things that need to come together to align for that thing to happen, which we never control. So this is like focus on what you can control and put your everything that you have into it. That's all that matters. So with that kind of an outlook, that's process focus, not outcome focus, we get rid of anxieties and all of the mental issues are because of illusion of control, and then we can get rid of the illusion of control with that mindset. So the biggest tool there is to get rid of all of this is, of course, the understanding of what these illusions are and using that detached attachment to get rid of that and to work with that limitation. So, and finally, the triad of gunas is a framework of three. So I told you the framework of two. There is a framework of three that's kind of how do we make choice in the world? We're constantly thrown all these different options. How do I choose different options? In the ancient Indian world, they saw the world as a framework of three. Everything in the world comes in threes. So universe is there's creation, sustenance, and there's destruction, and then there's a cycle. There's the recreated, sustain, destruction. So it goes on and on. We are awake, we dream, we are in deep sleep, we are again awake, we dream. So we are in these three states. So everything in the world is in states of three. So the world is always made up of three. And in this one, it says, those three are sattva, rajas, and tamas. So three. Rajas is basically, you can think of one extreme. It is high energy, expanding, exhilarating kind of energy on one side of the spectrum. Tamas is something that is breaking that. It is in opposition to movement. It's stopping. Right? It is your depression. It is where you don't want to leave home. Right? It's kind of the low energy state. You don't want to move. You don't want to do anything. Right? So that is the two extreme states. And sattva is that balance between those two extremes. So the Indian thought says, always in your choice, choose sattva. Because sattva is the path that can lead you out of this cycle. So I put, and that works with everything, physical, mental, everything. Right? So how do we make a choice? Look at fear. Like, what is fear, good or bad? Yeah. So if it's a rajasic fear, that means I take excessive risk. If it's on the other side, tamasic fear, it's phobia. I don't want to leave home. I don't want to do anything. So it says, neither rajas is good, nor tamas is good. You should have healthy fear. Because fear is there for a reason. But don't overdo it, don't underdo it. It's neither over nor under. It's just right. Anger. Again, there's destructive anger and there's constructive anger. Right? And then being pacific in your behavior. So that's a more tamasic kind. So you should be calm, assertive. Calmness is the tamasic energy, assertive is the rajasic, and they come together. You are calm, assertive. That is the state to be in. Self, our sense of self. A lot of self-importance, ego, that's the rajasic. I'm the greatest thing in the world. That's the rajasic side. Self-loathing, that's the tamasic side. It says that humility with self-respect and respect for others, that's the mean. That's where that's how we should behave. And emotions. High excitement, the high is always followed by the low. So high is the rajasic, and then the low, the depression is the tamasic. Peace, calm, that's the mean. And so this list is there in the book that I'm going to publish later on. But what this is saying is sattva just is not some esoteric thing that's out there, and then you talk about those Sanskrit names and it seems good. No, these are talking about the word, and the decisions you may need to make in the word. You use the framework of three and choose the sattva. Always, when in doubt, choose the middle path. Right? And with that, I will stop. So this is my attempt to kind of put the whole ocean of Indian thought into 10 big ideas from the end, which is the freedom of the mind. So that is the value that that we always have in the Indian thought as the highest value, is the freedom of the mind, the moksha, the freedom. And what stops the freedom is that unawareness, the body instincts. Everything that we are built, the human body, human brain is built, is always to perpetuate life. It always wants us to put the food on the table and just do the 9 to 5 and breathe that cycle again and again and again and again, endlessly, right? Cycle is what? Cycle has no end. That's why it's a circle. And so that's why the Indian thought always talks about breaking the cycle. And what is the expression of these cycles? One, illusion of identity. We always identify with the object and the context in which we are. And so we are unable to solve the problems of the context because we're not able to see the big picture. That's illusion of identity. Then illusion of permanence. We think the world will stay as it is, and that's not. And we're going to be there for a rude shock. And third is illusion of control. We think we control the outcomes when we don't. So these are the three expressions of that niyama. And the yoga part, like I said, in the Gita, yoga means a tool. The yoga is detached attachment. It is seeing things from the illusion of identity to seeing things as a mix of form and essence. Form doesn't matter. I can come in a jean and t-shirt and speak the truth. I can speak the truth in my Indian language, I can speak the truth in English. That form doesn't matter because the inherent essence is what matters. So that is the importance of kind of dividing that into, discriminating that into the form and essence. And then detached attachment is detached from the form and attached to the essence. The essence is the most important. And to handle the illusion of permanence, change is the only constant. Nobody can stop change. But the change is only the change of form. Essence will remain the same. To detach from the change of form, attach to the essence. And then finally, illusion of control, detach from the outcome focus, attach to what you can do. That's the attachment. And then for the decision framework is the framework of triad of gunas, the three gunas, and all this, there's over, there's under, but there's one which is just right. The moderation. All this with that. With that, I will take questions.